Thank you all for your practice. So I've been doing a 1,000-year-long series on the Satipatthana Sutta. I think this is like month 3 actually, so it's been going on for a while. And I've been running over each foundation and kind of teasing them out a little bit and really digging into the context and what this sutta says. The Satipatthana is the Buddha's discourse on the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And it's about a 10-page long how-to manual for how to practice mindfulness in the Buddhist tradition. We're on the 4th foundation of mindfulness, which is mindfulness of Dhammas or mindfulness of Dharmas. Dhammas is the Pali term, Dharma, Sanskrit. So same thing, just a little bit different flavor depending on your caste. So, and what I've been doing for the past few weeks is running over what are known as the 5 hindrances. These are hindrances in our meditation practice and hindrances just to our lives in general. Things that will get in our way and prevent us from living our lives as fully as we could. This week we are on the 4th hindrance, which is restlessness and worry. Doesn't that sound like fun? So the Buddha had a way that he described each of these hindrances. He had a simile of a bowl of clear water. And with this particular hindrance, he says that it's like the bowl is being windswept, right? So because of the agitation of the wind hitting the surface of the water, it prevents us from being able to clearly discern what is actually going on. The Pali term for restlessness is udacha, which translates as to shake, which I think is kind of neat because that's like, if we're talking about restlessness, like that lends itself to it perfectly, right? That nervous energy that we get, that restlessness in the body. I know for me, when I'm feeling anxious, I'll tap my foot. Sometimes I'll pace. Does anybody here pace? I'm a phone pacer. I pace when I get on the phone. Like I could wear a hole in the floor with how much I pace when I get on the phone. Fortunately, I don't get a lot of phone calls, but when I do, I definitely clock more steps that day than I did the previous day. And it's just this chaotic monkey mind, right? This kapicita is what the Buddha called it. Just jumping around from branch to branch, from place to place, just never at ease. It shows up. It can also show up as what's called papancha, or mental proliferation. And these are the stories that the mind spins about anything, right? It doesn't have to be anything even serious, but the mind loves to create a story. And it's just this sense of inner turmoil when the mind gets tossed about by agitation, which is why I really love that simile of the bowl and being windswept, because it's really easy to get carried away when we're anxious. Worry is the other part of this hindrance. And it's a little more subtle, I think, at times. Like it's not the physical manifestation of it, right? Whereas like restlessness is the physical manifestation, worry is purely in the mind. And it's that mind that just won't relax. That mind that just constantly racing. Do any of you have a mind like that? Mm-hmm. I know I do, for sure. And worry can manifest itself as general anxiety about the future. It can also manifest as guilt, regret, remorse about what we might have done or could have done, what we should do. The shoulda, coulda, wouldas. I've got a pretty good case of those. So it's a control issue, I think. As humans, we try to control our experience to the best of our ability. We try to fix things that need fixing. We try to avoid things that we don't like. We try to control our experience every step of the way, at least as much as we can. I mean, we are by nature animals of preference. We cling to pleasure and we do our absolute best to avoid pain as much as possible. And I think with restlessness and worry, I think what we're really talking about is anxiety, right? Like we could just put this under the blanket term of anxiety, I think. And I think it's really rooted in fear. I think anxiety is rooted in fear. It's kind of like we were talking about earlier. I can't remember who said it, but it's fear of the unknown. Fear of the unknown, the uncertainty of what could happen. And I know that's where a lot of my anxiety stems from. It's like, what could happen? But if we want to have any real sense of peace in our lives, we have to learn to just let go and let things be as they are. When we get down to it, again, it's all just rooted in fear. And that's what's scary about it, is that unknown. And, we fear what we don't understand, and we don't understand what we don't know. So is anyone a horror movie fan? Anybody like horror movies at all? Like, the scariest ones are the ones where you don't see the monster, right? When there's just the subtle hints of the monster. There's something, but you don't know what it is. And for me, that's scarier than even the worst slasher flicks. Is like that, the thrillers that I don't know what's happening. And it's understandable to have some fear around the unknown, I think, especially if we've been living unethically, right? If we're not living our lives ethically, then that opens up a whole can of worms for what could happen. The fear could be built around past karma. Maybe we've done something that could come around and bite us in the ass. I know none of you have ever done anything that would come back on you and bite you in the ass personally, because you're all wonderful people, or you wouldn't be in a Buddhist meditation group.
That's exactly why we're here.
So it's not necessarily, maybe that fear is not particularly unfounded. Maybe there is a real reason to have some anxiousness and some worry. But at the end of the day, it's still not helpful. If we're planting negative karmic seeds, we're going to get negative karmic fruit. It's just the way it works, cause and effect. There is no action without consequence. But if we're living a life filled with fear, we also hold ourselves back from the beauty of life and the beauty of the unknown. That's why we really have to lean into curiosity. So as far as fear of the unknown, I've been trying to get, I don't know if any of you know, I do one-on-one recovery coaching kind of stuff and mindset coaching and things of that nature. And I've been trying to get that off the ground for a little while, or at least that's the story I've been telling myself. I've been telling myself I've been trying to get it off the ground, but I haven't actually taken any real action to get it off of the ground. So the reality is that I'm afraid, right? I'm afraid that it just won't work. So I don't do things that I need to do in order to actually get it going. And so I've been kind of creating this self-fulfilling prophecy of inaction around fear, and then wondering why this shit's not working. And it's like, well, you're not doing anything to facilitate it actually working. So this talk is as much for me as it is for you. Just so you know, I'm giving myself a Dharma talk right now. Another way this hindrance can show up is the comparing mind. And this one has always been an issue for me. And though it's gotten a little bit better, it still creeps in from time to time. And none of you have a comparing mind, I'm sure. Nobody likes to hold themselves and compare your outside or your insides to other people's outsides. Nobody does that. I'm the only one. Cool. No, I really feel like we all get into that habit, right? It's so easy to compare ourselves to other people, especially people who appear to be doing better than we are. Appear to have the nicer house, the nicer car, appear to be getting the coaching clients that we want, things like that. And I feel like social media has made that a whole lot worse, because all we're seeing is the carefully curated version of these people's lives. We see all of the high points. We don't see any of the shit show that goes on behind the scenes, but dukkha's a thing, and we all know that everybody's suffering. We're all experiencing suffering at some level. So it's easy to believe that someone's life is perfect when all you're seeing is the highlight reel, but nobody's life is perfect. So I'm going to be teaching a retreat next month, January 6th. If anybody wants to come, it would be cool if you did. Because the last workshop that I put together on relational mindfulness, I had nobody show up to. 0 people showed up, and that was a little crushing for me, It would have been nice to have had people to show up, but so when I'm, scrolling online and I see people doing these events that have 30, 40 people show up to them, Part of me is envious. I'm envious that they're successful and I'm not. I'm envious that I don't get invited to the things that they get invited to. Another part of me is angry. And another part of me feels like I'm not good enough. Like I'm not included because people don't like me. Like I'm the outsider, the weirdo. I've always felt like the outsider and the weirdo. I've always felt like I was on the outside looking in. That I'm somehow different than everyone else. And that everybody can see that and everybody knows. And that part of me wants to isolate, and that part of me wants to hide from the world. And I don't like that feeling. I used to really feel like there was something wrong with me for feeling that way. That I was broken or damaged. But it turns out, I'm just a human being. And you know what? Those feelings, they're just feelings. And while they can be pretty intense at times, our feelings aren't necessarily a good indicator of how we're doing. They're a good indicator of how we're feeling, but not necessarily how we're doing. So rather than try to push those feelings away, I've learned to just welcome them in. Hello, envy. Pull up a chair. Oh, hello, anger. You can be here too. Oh, my old friend, self-hatred. Come on in. Join the party. You can be here. There's only what is loved and what longs for love. So the envious, scared, hurt, angry parts of me, they're all just calling for love. And while that may have been helpful in protecting me when I was younger and my heart wasn't ready to deal with those kinds of emotions, I'm grown now and I don't necessarily need those things to protect me anymore. I don't need to hate myself. And you can't hate yourself better anyway. Trust me, I've tried. It doesn't work. I've run the test and it's absolutely a fail every time. It's like the 5th verse of the Dhammapada. Hatred is never appeased by hatred. By love alone is hatred appeased. So the more that I just let it be there, the quieter it gets. And just allowing these feelings, these emotions to be there, and loving myself just the way that I am. It's like any of you ever heard the story of the anger-eating demon? So in the time of the Buddha, there was a king, King Saka, and he was the king of the devas, the king of the gods. And there was this demon, and this demon had like a pretty weird, peculiar diet. He fed on anger. Like he loved anger. That was his favorite food. And so the demon had a pretty good time of finding food in the human realm. It's pretty easy to find food in the human realm. There's a lot of anger in the human realm. And if there wasn't, he found it pretty simple to just start a war or start something that would cause anger to arise. But he said, I'm going to go to the realm of the gods and try my hand there. And it just so happened that when he got there, King Saka was out on business doing king of the gods shit, whatever that is. I don't have any idea what king of the gods do or why they would need to leave their castle and their throne. But that's what he did, and the demon shows up. And what he does is he goes and he sits on King Saka's throne. And the guards come in and they find him. They're like, yo, demon, like, what the fuck are you doing in here sitting on the king's throne? You got to get out of here. And the demon's just like, sweet. And just starts feeding on the anger. Like, demon, you got to go. Like, this is King Saka's throne. This is his palace. You are smelly. You are ugly. You have to get out of here. And he just grows bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And he keeps growing, and he like fills the castle up. He's so large. And he starts emitting this noxious gas that smells like rotten eggs. And they just keep hurling insults at him. You stink. And he just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And finally, King Sakashiba shows up. And he's like, "Oh, anger-eating demon, how have you been? It's so good to see you." And he shrinks a little bit. He's like, "How's the anger-eating wife? How are the anger-eating kids? What's going on in the anger-eating world? You want some tea? Can I get you a foot rub? And what can I do for you?" And slowly, he shrinks and just disappears. We were just saying, I think most people that come here are looking for something, that you're trying to better yourselves in some way. And I know that a lot of you have experienced pain and some really difficult times. We all have. I mean, it must have been bad enough to get you to come here on a Monday night and listen to me ramble on about anger-eating demons and shit for an hour and a half. But I'm here to tell you to just let it go. Stop trying to better yourself. You're perfect just the way you are. And so am I. And so I've stopped trying to heal myself. I'm done with that game. I've stopped trying to better myself. I've given up on trying to fix anything. Rather than focusing on trying to be fixed, I'm going to focus on just being more loving. On just cultivating a heart that is so loving that I can love the parts of myself that I feel like need fixing. The parts of myself that I feel are broken. The parts of myself that I feel are damaged. The parts of myself that I don't want to be a part of myself. I have to love those too. Again, you can't hate yourself better. You can't hate the anxiety away. You can't hate the worry away. You just have to open up and love that shit too. So be gentle with yourselves. Life's hard. I think we're all probably doing a lot better than we give ourselves credit for. I think that just by being involved with this practice at all and having a level of mindfulness kind of puts us ahead of the game in a way, right? Because most people just fall prey to this shit. Like when the anxiety arises, they just get lost in it. But with mindfulness, and you all practice mindfulness, we were all just doing it together. We can see when these mental states arise. We can say, "Oh, hello anxiety. Hello restlessness. Hello worry." We can love those parts too. It's easy to get lost in the outcomes. It's super easy to get swept away when we're feeling anxious. But with mindfulness, we remember to come back. We're always coming back to the present moment. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. We all want to be happy. We all want success. And there's nothing wrong with that. Please chase your dreams, enjoy your lives. But worrying about things that are out of our control are only going to cause us more suffering. Alan Watts has this quote, "No amount of anxiety makes any difference to what is going to happen." So we just learn to let go. We let go of the reactivity and we turn towards the pain. We turn towards the anxiety and we do it with a loving heart. And the Buddha gave some ways to kind of combat this, but I think loving kindness is the best way. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a loving kindness practice.